On this week's episode, we will go over the women's basketball Big 12 tournament and preview the men's basketball Big 12 tournament. And we'll hear from sports reporter Stephen Schwartz about the Iowa State softball team. All of that on this week's episode of the Ames Angle. The Big 12 women's basketball tournament just wrapped up in Kansas City before it's the men's turn. Aleigha was down there with our Iowa State Daily team, providing full coverage of the Iowa State Cyclones run down there that was very abrupt and brief. Cyclones falling to Arizona State in their first game down in Kansas City.
Pretty much from the beginning, it was kind of a downfall for the Cyclones. With Arizona State opening the game on a 14-0 run after 5 minutes, it was the story was already kind of told to some extent. But Iowa State did try to fight back in the second half, but ultimately it just didn't click for them, and Sparky got the best of the Cyclones. Probably the biggest thing coming out of that game was that there was 51 fouls amongst both teams, and yet the only one who could really profit off of that was Arizona State, which kind of just led Iowa State to meet its demise and end the tournament the same day that they got there.
Aleigha, talking about the whole Big 12 tournament as in its entirety, what did you see out of the Big 12, and how do you think it benefits the Cyclones going into March?
The biggest thing that I've noticed over the entire season, not just the Big 12 tournament, is that, and something that Bill has touched on a lot, is that no matter where you are in the seeding, like anyone can beat anyone. We kind of saw that in the championship of the game. But just going into that, knowing that how complex this conference is, it's going to give the Cyclones a better chance at getting into the tournament.
At the end of the tournament, West Virginia, 2-seed West Virginia, upset number 1 seed TCU to win the Big 12 tournament championship. And Aleigha, what do you think it shows for the Big 12 on a national scale?
I think just kind of going off of what I said earlier, that this just shows how competitive the Big 12 conference is, and that everyone should kind of watch out for what they're going to bring into March or further into March. And West Virginia, I mean, once they beat the Cyclones in the regular season, I kind of knew that from then that they were a team to watch out for, and that they're dangerous, and that just overall, wherever they end up in the rest of the tournament, is that they're just going to be a team to be scared of.
The Cyclones are a projected 10 seed in the March 9th version of CBS's bracketology. As a 10 seed, you would play the 7 seed, could be really anywhere, but they would be in a region with potentially predicted 2 seed Iowa. So could be a very interesting matchup on that aspect.
We will have coverage of the NCAA tournament as it proceeds, and now it's time for our guest of the week.
This week, we are bringing in one of our sports reporters, Stephen Schwartz. Stephen, welcome. I understand you wanted to talk a little bit about the softball team and what's going on with them.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about the softball team today. Currently, they sit at 13-9. Unfortunate 0-3 start to the Big 12 against Baylor. They played in Waco, but they started off pretty nice, 13-6. And then just finishing better than how they finished last year when they finished 9-9. So it's a little upgrade, but there is some things to play with what they've been doing this year. Their schedule is a lot easier than last year. They only had to travel 2 times across the country to play their opponents, and they didn't have to face Ole Miss twice, Florida, Indiana twice. So their schedule has been a little easier, and that can be explained with how good their offense has looked. They have seven players batting over 300, with Reagan Bartholomew, senior, leading with a .420 batting average. So the offense is pretty good. But a pretty cool, interesting fact about this team is that Tiana Poole, which is also a senior, she had only 6 hits last year. And now she's batting .370 with 17 hits, 2 homers, 6 extra base hits. So I guess in a way the offense was just as good as last year, but they only had 4 girls batting over 300. And it was basically a leading cause of just Angelina, Jesse Clemens, Angelina Allen, which is senior. She left. She's graduated now. Freshman Serenity Trice, who is unfortunately at Arizona. She transferred right after the season ended, and the team that we lost to in the Big 12 tournament was Arizona. So she did do a little bit of a, if you can't join them or you can't beat them, join them. So that's a little unfortunate. But and then junior Tatum, when Tatum Johnson was a junior, she batted .353, and then also we had freshmen. So we had 4 players with freshman Carly Ford finishing it out with batting .317.
This week for Threads of the Week, we have a jersey from the Mighty Ducks, one of the greatest sports movies of all time. We got Goldberg. Give it up for Goldberg, man. One of the greatest goalies in Pee Wee hockey of all time. That's our Threads of the Week. Now it's time for the Ames Angle of the Week. Iowa State men's basketball said goodbye to 5 seniors: Dominic Nelson, Eric Mueller, Nate Heisey, Joshua Jefferson, and last, Mr. Cyclone himself, Taman Lipsey, on senior day as they beat Arizona State 86-65 in the Big 12 regular season finale. All 5 of them shared a pretty cinematic moment towards the end of the game as they all shared the court with each other one last time before Otzelberger called a timeout and subbed off his 3 starting seniors, or 3 players that received significant minutes. Heisey, Jefferson, and then last but not least, Taman Lipsey, who received a massive ovation from the 14,000 strong at Hilton Coliseum.
Just going into that, what was it like to see the stripe out in front of all those fans?
To be honest, I was really surprised on how Cyclone Nation handled the stripe out. I think they did a great job. The student sections did great. And I'll give a shout out to the pep band there too. They were scheduled to only have just yellow, but they did a stripe in the middle of their pep band. So credit for the Iowa State pep band. They did it really well.
Now the men's team will hit Kansas City to partake in the Big 12 tournament as they enter as the 5th seed.
Iowa State finished 5th, like Aleigha said, in the Big 12 regular season standings. They are currently slated to face the winner of 13 seed Baylor and 12 seed Arizona State on Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. And then as they look to advance, if they win that game, they'd play Texas Tech. And then after that, in the semifinals, they would move on to play projected number 1 seed Arizona in that semifinal. The one thing that I'm going to look at is that maybe Iowa State would have benefited a little bit more from being the number 6 seed. They're on the top half of the bracket with top number 1 seed Arizona and number 4 seed Texas Tech, 2 teams that defeated Iowa State this season. On the other side of the bracket, you have Kansas and Houston. Iowa State beat Houston the one time they played them, and then Iowa State split a series with Kansas 1-1. They each won at home. So Iowa State is going to have to go through some teams that have beaten Iowa State bad and that they have not defeated to get to the Big 12 championship game in Kansas City on Saturday.
Stay tuned for coverage in a special edition of the Ames Angle as Katie Schaefer and Henry Annen hit the Big 12 tournament.
Please like, comment, and subscribe for more at the Iowa State Daily. For this episode, we'll see you next time.